to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast, the most listened to daily Miami Dolphins podcast on the internet.
Miami's got the Dolphins, the greatest of all.
Come on, Dolphins fans. Time to fins up.
We're in the air, we're on the ground, we're always in control. And when you say Miami, you're talking Super Bowl. Cause we're the Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins number one. Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins number one.
Good morning, Miami Dolphins fans. How are you today? And thank you for listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast on this Friday, May the 30th, TGIF. I am your host, Michael Leva. And on today's show, we have a very special guest, as I am joined by Andrew Marchand, the senior sports media critic for The Athletic. You can follow him on Twitter at Andrew Marchand and check out his website, andrewmarchand.com, for his great podcast as he covers sports media and all these TV deals and what's going on, who's going where, who's jumping from ESPN to CBS, who's jumping from CBS to Fox and all that stuff better than anybody. And I thought this is a good time in the offseason to discuss the NFL TV deals, what's going on with the possible ESPN takeover of the NFL Network, what's going on with the opt-out clauses in the NFL TV agreements. Is the Fox NFC package, is that going to move and go to another network? Is the AFC CBS package, is that going to move and go to a streamer? What's going on with all that? So Andrew Marchand is the best in the business in his field. So very happy to have him on today's show for a few minutes to discuss that. I did a show Thursday afternoon when the news broke about Jonnu Smith. If you didn't hear that show, check out our show on Thursday where I went through everything regarding Jonnu Smith and everything happening with that. And, real quick, if they trade him, I don't agree with it. If they can't find a way to pay and keep Jonnu Smith, again, this is Jonnu Smith, not one of the great tight ends in the NFL. He's a good player, don't get me wrong. But if we can't keep him, then something is seriously wrong with this organization. So check out the show I did Thursday where I did a deep dive into that. As always, if you're watching this show on YouTube, do me a favor, smash that like button right now, and also subscribe to the channel. And also a shout out to the sponsor of today's show, Caneswear. Go to caneswear.com for the best and most affordable Miami Dolphins apparel on the internet. And if you're in South Florida, stop by their store at 2655 South University Drive in Davie. One more thing real quick. On Thursday, we started our 5th annual Military Fan of the Year contest. That's right. Each year, we here at DolphinsTalk.com run a Military Fan of the Year contest. If you are serving in the military or if you have served in the military and are a fan of the Dolphins and you want to go to a Miami Dolphins home game this year, between now and July 7th, you have to send an email to us at DolphinsTalk1977@gmail.com. I need your name, when and where you served, and one short paragraph on why you should win. And myself, Ian, Tom, Josh, Aaron, we look over all the submissions and then we pick a winner. And you will get 2 tickets to any Miami Dolphins home game this year. You also get a parking pass and a $100 Visa gift card to spend there on food, drinks, or if you want to buy merchandise, that's on us. In that email, please tell me which home game you want to go to. I can't tell you how many people send in the whole submission and don't tell me which home game they want to go to. You have to put in which home game you want to go to. So we are very happy to do this and support our proud military here and just give something back to at least one. Sometimes we do 2, but 1 this year, military members who are fans of the Dolphins, and we send them to a game. You're responsible for flying to the game, and you're responsible for your hotel and all that stuff if you're not in the area. But we take care of the tickets, the parking, and we put $100 in your pocket as well. So check that out. Information's up on the website. Information is up on my social media channels at Dolphins Talk as well. So right now I'm going to take a quick break, and after the break, I will be joined by Andrew Marchand, senior sports media critic for The Athletic, to talk about the NFL and their TV deals and everything going on with the NFL on TV coming up in 2025. So sit tight, and we'll be back after this. Joining me today here on the podcast is senior sports media critic for The Athletic, Andrew Marchand. You can follow him on Twitter, X, whatever we're calling it this week, at Andrew Marchand. And also check out the website, andrewmarchand.com. He has an outstanding podcast, which I listen to twice a week because that's how many shows he drops each week. Andrew, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for listening, and thanks for having me on.
Yes,
Because you know what, I lived in Miami for a couple of years, so I was a
I was
huge
going to ask you.
Dan Marino fan. I actually go ahead.
No, on one of the podcasts, it was a while back, not recent ones, you mentioned you were a fan of the Dolphins, but then I heard recently on a podcast, I think you said you root for Pittsburgh now, maybe? So what happened with the switch?
Okay. So when I was 5 years old, 1979, lived in Connecticut, I said whoever wins the Super Bowl and the World Series are going to be my two favorite teams, which at 5 years old is legal.
That's a big deal.
I will mention that after the Steelers kind of went on a drought, stuck with them forever, diehard. So I wasn't like really a fair weather fan. Pirates weren't good my whole childhood until I got into high school, when I still loved them, but lost a little interest. Wasn't as interested as I was as a kid. I used to cry when they lost when I was like a kid. So total Pittsburgh fan. Moved to Miami after third grade. Young man from the University of Pittsburgh was drafted, you might have heard, in the late rounds there by the Dolphins. And I didn't go to many games, Miami, but I did go to Marino's first game that he started against the Bills at the Orange Bowl. Overtime game. And my dad, we left early because he wanted to beat the traffic. So the fact that they ended up losing that game probably saved my dad, because I was not thrilled. But that's how I became a Dolphin fan. I love the Dolphins until I did not like how Jimmy Johnson treated Marino at the end. So then I I kind of feel like you should only have one team. So I had two teams for a long time. And so that's what happened there.
Well, you haven't missed much being a fan of this team, because there hasn't been much going on with the Miami Dolphins since the Marino era. It's been there's been some ups, but mainly more downs. So there's that. But I get asked a lot by our listeners about this NFL TV deal, because we hear a lot about the opt-out that is going to be coming up in a few years, and I explain it to the people as best as I know. But I think having someone like you on to maybe explain it to our listeners, so they maybe have more of an understanding, would be great, which is why I love having you on today. So essentially, the NFL signed a deal in 2021, goes for like 11 or 12 years, but there's an opt-out coming up in about 4 or 5. Explain what that means for a viewer. Is everything going to change, or are the people in place just going to fork over more money? Because the NFL, in my opinion, has to opt out because there's just more money on the table for them at this point.
100%. To answer the broader question, no one knows exactly how it will play out. They're going to have negotiations. I think right now it's almost an impossibility that they won't either threaten to opt out or opt out. Because they threaten to opt out and never actually do it and just get more money from everybody. I think that potentially could happen. So you never have a technical opt out. The way it works, every network and platform, so all the networks, NBC, Fox, CBS, and Fox, CBS, NBC, all have their opt-outs, and Amazon all have their opt-outs after the 29 season. ESPN's, for some reason, is 1 year later after the 30 season. And so the NFL will likely do that. You look at the NBA deals, the NFL deals for 11 years were 110 billion, not counting all these add-ons with Netflix and all these other ones that keep doing YouTube. So 110 billion. The NBA got 75 billion. NFL programming is much more important. And so, like you just said, there's money on the table. So will it change? I do think you could see, if you ask me like one thing to look for, I kind of look at those conference championship games, and the idea that they're only on CBS and Fox seems a little bit something that is traditional, but could they rotate where Amazon or an ESPN or others get involved, NBC get involved in some sort of rotation, just like the Super Bowl? I just think there's money on the table for that. And so I wouldn't be shocked, or, that's where the Netflix is, and, they just want the big events. So maybe they get more involved in those type of things.
If I am CBS and Fox, though, and you're spending $2 billion for the rights, and you know what, you got to pay extra for the conference championship games. The NFL, they'll get away with it because it's the NFL. But if I'm an executive at one of those networks, you got to be kidding me. First off, you're taking away all my top games every year. You're handing them to Thursday night football, Sunday. Now I got to pay extra for they will look if they want that, they will have it. But if I'm at Fox, CBS, or whoever ends up with the package, that's got to rub them. That's got to be a tough pill to swallow.
100%. But and here's the interesting part is that if you look at the businesses of ESPN, CBS, Fox, NBC, they have to have the NFL.
Yep.
I mean, they can maybe survive, but to be relevant, we all know this. I think, an average fan knows that if you look at the 100 top shows on Nielsen's ratings every year, 75 to 8 to 90 are generally are NFL games. So they have to have it. The Netflixes, the Amazons, the YouTubes, they have endless money, and they are interested, and they are also already involved. But the question with those players for the NFL is they don't necessarily need the NFL, and I don't. That's not like long term. I think it's better to keep those other places alive. And if you look at the current deals, yes, they kind of you do need a million services to get every game.
Yeah,
But there is a traditional, if you want to watch traditionally with your Sunday package, especially if you have a team like, no offense, the Dolphins, it's terrible.
No, that's true. That's true.
That you can pretty much watch without getting Sunday. Obviously depends where you live. Without getting Sunday ticket, without necessarily needing Amazon. Maybe you miss one game of your local market, you get it locally, so don't even need Amazon that way. So you can. Their argument that you still can watch, yes, you just can't necessarily get every game. And I'm old enough when they used to have to buy the tickets locally, or like the supermarket, or somebody would buy the last 2,000 tickets so you didn't get a blackout. That was always a big deal.
Yes, that also happened. Like I am going to be 48 in July. I remember the days of that, and it's like, some games weren't shown in your area. Nowadays, that seems like it almost never happens.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. It doesn't happen. I think the NFL kind of also I think it's kind of also kind of a old, like something that made sense at one point now doesn't make as much sense.
Air all the games. Let everyone watch everything.
Exactly.
If you're going to show up, you're going to show up. If you're not, who cares almost? Streaming. That's like the next thing here, because as you said, endless money. If a Netflix, if a YouTube, who I know already has Sunday ticket, obviously, Amazon, if they go, you know what? We want one of the two main packages. We want the Fox Pack, CBS. If they were to throw around crazy money and get it, would we see your senators and your congressmen go, hold on, this needs to be on TV, not streaming? Or are we past that now with that, like the streaming? Or do you think they would step in and be like, antitrust, this has to be on for everybody? Like, could they get involved that far? Because right now, one game a week, Christmas Day, Netflix, not a big deal. But if they're like a Sunday package where half the games are on a streamer, would we see people up in arms, whether it's performative or not by the Congress people? Would we see people up in arms?
So yes and no. And the yes is yes, they would be up in arms. Ted Cruz just had a committee the other day where he had the major leagues. He invited everybody. Roger Goodell didn't go to talk about this issue. That's just like sort of a little. That's not some sort of snowball effect, but it is. They're looking at it. They're saying, okay, it's kind of a warning shot. So here's the thing about it. Look, we can't say forever, but we're talking about 29, 30. We can only do kind of 5-10 year increments here. My sense is that the streamers will not have the Sunday packages. I don't think they want them, for one, even though the head of Netflix kind of said something to that effect, that we'd be interested in, the AFC package. I just don't think that really works in what they do exactly. Maybe YouTube, but maybe they do it on a free, at a not on
Let
YouTube
everyone watch
TV.
it.
Yeah. So it's free. That you still would have that element of you don't have to pay for something. So so yes and no. Yes, everyone would be up in arms if that did happen, but I don't think that will happen. I think the NFL knows it they can get enough money without getting the government all in their grill.
Yeah. NFL Network. Not what it once was, let's just say. And there's a lot of rumors that ESPN might be either partnering with them or just taking it over. Where are we with that? Obviously, with the move of Rich Eisen and his radio show, many people said, "Oh, that's the first step here of a larger thing in play." Is that something that will happen? Are we close to that? Is that like a year or two down the road? You think? What's because if you look at the NFL Network outside of their stuff prior to the draft, it's got nothing anymore. It's lost Schrager, it's lost Adams. I mean, all this outside of their stuff with the draft, there's
Yep.
really not much on there anymore.
100%. Yeah, I did a podcast maybe a month ago saying that that deal's in the red zone. So
Close.
I think there's a very good chance that happens by, ESPN's going to have their own direct to consumer product, meaning that you don't have to have cable to get ESPN. If you have cable, you still can get ESPN, and they're trying to add programming. And so could they get red zone as part of a deal with the NFL? They get NFL Network, they get the fantasy business from the NFL. They're trying to make that even more of a destination to go to ESPN for everything sports. So I think that very well could happen. I think there's optimism on both sides that will happen. But with the NFL, until a deal's done, I don't believe it. They've been
Yeah.
talking to ESPN for about 4 years, so this is kind of the one. Either it happens now, or I think that's it. I don't think you revisit it again, but I think it's probably going to happen.
And it kind of makes sense, honestly, because ESPN, when people think of sports, ESPN, NFL networks obviously changed since once it first come on. Like I said, not much left. Let ESPN take over the dang network at this point and run it because they have so much programming of their own around the NFL, anyways. It kind of like makes sense as a happy marriage almost.
I agree. And look, if you look at the most important thing in ESPN's history to make it the most dominant, probably media company in our country ever for its period, not now, but it's
Yeah.
still very important. Getting the NFL in 1987 changed how they could do their cable contracts. And so would this deal be akin to that? No, but I do think if you look at anything you want to dominate and satisfy customers, you want the NFL. They already have so much NFL programming. Now they're going to have by far the most, especially during the week. And in this deal, they'd probably add 8 more games, which means they'd have 33 overall. You just want to make it so people have to have ESPN. And it's, the more people, the better.
Yeah.
And with these subscription businesses, in theory, they pay you forever, every month, forever, for the rest of your life. You add up how much you pay for these, it's a lot of money. But,
Yeah.
obviously they give you a service each month, so it has to be worth it for you. So it does make a lot of sense. Do the numbers add up? I can't tell you that because I don't know them yet. But even so, I just think if you're ESPN, I do think it's kind of pretty smart to be in business, even further with the NFL.
If you want to be tight at the hip with one of the sports promotions, it is the NFL. Hockey can come and go. No one's going to care. NBA's big. It ain't that big. Major League Baseball, which they've already told to go screw pretty much. The NFL's the one you want to be tied at the hip to.
100%.
Last question for you. Monday Night Football this year, I know there's a few more weeks where they have 2 games on. What are your thoughts with those? I like those weeks because a lot of times if one game's bad, you're going to have a second game that is hopefully pretty good. So I love those weeks. What are your thoughts on that? Are you for that? Are you against that? 'Cause I know some people I just want my one game. Some people go, I love the 2 games. Like me, I like the 2 games on Monday night.
Well, I think they did 2 things right. They staggered the starts more, so it's 7 and 10. So you're getting more of a true doubleheader.
True doubleheader.
As opposed to the 2 games at once, which I didn't love. They also moved the games up in the season, so you get the doubleheaders earlier, because I do think an issue for ESPN and the NFL, for that matter, is later in the season, you kind of had one dog game where I forgot last year they had like the Cardinals and somebody else, and it's just like
Cardinals, Chargers, I think it was.
Yeah, I feel like, yep. So both teams aren't good. Who's going to watch that besides the local fans, and maybe not even them? So I think it's better. Do I love it? I don't love. Look, I watch so much NFL.
I know.
So for me, I always say this about the NFL and the tonnage sports, baseball, basketball, hockey, their disadvantage is that it's such a commitment. If you're a Dolphin fan, and I know people like you and probably people listening to this podcast are probably diehard football fans. They're
Oh
not.
yeah,
You're not listening to Dolphins talk.
yeah,
On the
exactly.
podcast unless you really love your Dolphins and you love the NFL. So you're probably not just watching the Dolphins. That said, in theory, you could say to your significant other, I just need 3 hours. I got to watch the Dolphins. The
Yep.
rest of the weekend, the rest of the
It's
week,
yours.
it's yours. We can figure it out. But
I'll go apple picking. I don't care. Let's just
exactly.
But I
Go
need those
apple
3
picking.
hours on Sunday at 1. That's what I need. Yes.
Exactly. And that's really not that big of an ask. I do think that, and I've said this on the pod, look, the NFL is still going to dominate. They're still going to have the ratings are going to be up this year. Nielsen's doing the ratings differently. It's not a presidential election, which always impacts the ratings. But that doesn't mean every decision's right that they make. And I do think that they're diluting the games. If you looked at CBS's schedule, that final weekend of the year, I think it was the
terrible.
Dolphins. I think the Dolphins Bills had a little playoff implication, but that was like the only game, if I remember correctly.
It was Miami versus the Jets, week 18. Miami needed help from like 1 or 2 other teams, which it wasn't there. So now you got Rodgers playing against a team that just looks at the scoreboard and goes like, well, our season's over. The game was pointless, but you get to see Rodgers probably for the last time. Who the heck knows with them? But there was no draw to that game by the time it went on.
And that was their best game. If you're CBS,
that was the best game of the week.
Money.
Yeah.
The games got diluted. NBC has, they get the Sunday night that usually has playoff implications. I think there's Saturday games there. That's a tough. I just feel like there's not enough good matchups when you get late in the season. And I don't think
going
that's
head
great.
to head with the couch playoffs. That's just wrong. They should have looked at those weeks and said, that's just why. They didn't need, if they want to go after Christmas Day, go after the NBA. The college football one I thought was wrong. Mad Dog was yelling and screaming about it one morning. I go, you know what? He's right. He's absolutely right, Mad Dog. But it's like, why? There's no point for that.
Yeah, I mean, they would argue that was always a Saturday. That was the NFL Saturday. I thought they went pretty hard, though, with the games they scheduled. They did
yes,
not.
They did.
Put really big. It was
they put good matchups, yeah.
Or that was the Christmas. Anyways, there's one of them was a huge matchup, or a couple of good matchups, and so I just think the NFL though they don't care. They don't care. They're just blitzing. They're blitzing, and then they're up. They're up 56-0. They're blitzing with the minute.
They're running up the score game.
Fourth.
Yeah, they're running up the score. Christmas Day's on a Tuesday. Who cares? Netflix in. They're going to pay us a ton. We'll play games on a Tuesday. Who cares?
Exactly.
Wednesday, don't worry about it. We'll play a game on a Wednesday. We'll figure out the rest. It's it's crazy. But Andrew, thank you so much for a few moments of your time today. Follow Andrew Marchand on Twitter at Andrew Marchand. Go to the andrewmarchand.com website. Check out the podcast. Your two best interviews. Look, they're all good, but the two I enjoyed the most were Joel Sherman gave a class on how reporters need to cover teams. That was the best one. And then just a few weeks ago, Ariel Helwani about his journey and all the craziness of the UFC. And Dana White is literally insane what he had to go through. Those are two great interviews, but I listen every week. I haven't listened to today's yet. I will, though.
Yeah, Mark Kriegel. I think you'll enjoy it on Tyson.
I will. Yes, because it's Mike Tyson. But yes, check out Andrew Marchand, the pride of Ithaca College. Now, I went to Lemoyne, 1 hour north. And when Lemoyne faces Ithaca in softball or field hockey, throw the record books out the window. Those two teams just get it on. So, yes, the pride of Ithaca College, Andrew Marchand. Thank you so much, Andrew. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, Mike, thanks for having me.
Hey, everyone. Mike here from DolphinsTalk.com. Real quick, I just want to give a thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to smash that like button and subscribe to our channel. Also, just want to say thank you for all the support you provide us here at DolphinsTalk.com and have over the many years. We thank you, thank you, thank you. It's much appreciated. Without you, there would be no us. I know there are so many other podcast options out there these days, whether it's true crime, the NBA, Major League Baseball, news, politics, and, of course, other Miami Dolphins podcasts as well. We really do appreciate you taking a few minutes out of your day, each and every day, to watch our stuff here at DolphinsTalk.com. Also, if you like this show and want more content from us, please be sure to sign up for Dolphins Talk Extra. Go to patreon.com/Dolphins Talk. We have a private message board where you can interact with only extra members and ourselves here, the staff at the website. We have extra podcasts about the Dolphins and also extra podcasts not about the Miami Dolphins. And we give away a ton of prizes. We have a ton of contests that are exclusive to Dolphins Talk extra members. We give away autographs, memorabilia, jerseys, hats, all that fun stuff. So everyone, please be sure to go to patreon.com/DolphinsTalk. It's $3 a month. It's really cheap. You'll have a lot of fun. Trust me. But once again, thank you so much. Everyone have a great day.